What if the biggest problems in our neighborhoods aren't accidents at all? We're gonna get into it. Let's get it! Welcome. First of all, welcome. This is Unsolicited Perspectives. I am your host, Bruce Anthony, here to lead the conversation in important events and topics that are shaping today's society. Join the conversation and follow us wherever you get your audio podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for our video podcast, YouTube exclusive content, and our YouTube membership. Rate, review, comment, share. Share with your friends, share with your family, hell, even share with your enemies. On today's episode, we're sitting down with Preston King Robinson, founder of Garden Picasso. We're going to explore how yesterday's decisions still shape our communities today and what it really takes to rebuild neighborhoods from the ground up. But that's enough of the intro. Let's get to the show. Every once in a while, we have a conversation that forces us to look at something we've accepted as normal and ask a simple question. Was it always supposed to be this way? When heavy rain comes, some neighborhoods flood over and over again while others barely notice. Some communities have access to fresh food around the corner while others have to drive miles just to buy vegetables. Some places seem to attract investment while others spend decades waiting for someone to care. Most people see these as separate issues. Today's guest says they're all connected, not because of bad luck, not because of coincidence, but because of decisions that were made generations ago whose consequences are still showing up today. Our guest, Preston King Robinson, didn't just decide to talk about these problems. After surviving one of the biggest battles of his own life, he returned home with a different mission. He wanted to build something that actually changes the conditions people are living in. His company isn't simply cleaning up vacant land. He's transforming forgotten spaces into places that help manage flooding, produce food for the community, and create opportunities for people who often been overlooked by society. What I find interesting about this conversation isn't really about landscaping. It's about opportunity. It's about ownership. It's about asking whether we can repair communities by investing in people who already live there instead of waiting for someone else to save them. We're also going to talk about how the past continues to shape the present, why certain neighborhoods always seem to be carrying the heaviest of burdens, and what it looks like to create meaningful work inside of temporary solutions. We're also going to be talking about how one person's personal journey became the catalyst for changing entire communities. This is one of those conversations that remind us that real change doesn't always begin in City Hall. Sometimes it starts with somebody willing to pick up a shovel, plant a seed, and refuse to believe things have to stay the way they've always been. So without further ado, Preston King Robinson. As I said at the top, I'm here with Preston King Robinson, the founder of Garden Picasso. King, it is a pleasure to have you on the show. I'm really excited to talk about this particular subject because this is new to me. This is new information. Typically, I have somewhat of an understanding before I have somebody on of what we're going to be talking about, but this is new. So I'm excited to have you on the show. Thank you for coming on the show. I'm excited to get this going.
Of course, man. I appreciate you, giving me the opportunity to spread, what needs to be known about stormwater management, especially where I'm from in New Orleans, And you're not the only person who is new to, a lot of people hear about it. They can see that that with climate change, we get way more rain, way more intense heat summers. So a lot of people, they're like, oh yeah, I can use this, but they don't really understand the importance of it and how it can benefit the community. It can benefit that individual, like financially, because it's big. You can also, as a property protection plan with that, how it helps, the overall stability of the individual whose property is on and the community that the property is in.
Okay. All right. Well, you brought up something, and I like to start off every interview with let's go back. Let's take it back. Tell me what it was like for you growing up in New Orleans, home of Master P and Cash Money Records. I know New Orleans got more than that, but that's Master P and Cash Money Records. But tell me what it was like growing up in New Orleans. And then when did you start to notice that certain parts of the city would flood and other parts wouldn't?
So, I mean, when I grew up, it was it's like the Southern hospitality that you think it is. That's literally the epitome of New Orleans. I grew up in a time where your neighbor, if you got in trouble, your neighbor could punish you basically. You
Mhm.
know, because they know your people.
Mm.
So that's a kind of it's very community based, which is kind of led me into what I'm doing right now. So literally out street lights, you know what I'm saying? Out to the street lights on. We had the candelator around the corner, you know what I'm saying? We had a certain freedom that a lot of people don't have. You know, like when people watch movies and they're like, oh, like when a TV show you come up, you're wearing your kids, that's the
Mhm.
kind of era in the water, you know what I'm saying? So,
Mhm.
but it was always all love, you know what I'm saying? Always good food, always good people, you know what I'm saying? And I, even though we had hurricanes, you know, and stuff like that, we we never had to actually leave for a hurricane until Katrina, for real.
Mhm.
So, like everything, like I love my childhood. I ain't gonna even lie. Everything about it, from the people, the food, and even as I got older, I didn't even realize that as children, we're learning our language, like the Creole, the New Orleans speak that we have, like the lingo, like all of
Mm.
that's French based.
Mhm.
And I didn't even realize that. So a lot of the slang, like if you could like we say beaucoup a lot, you know, like that's
What's that
literally
mean?
French. That's literally French. It means a lot. So
Mm.
that though, and like right now, we'll be like some people like when they're talking about a woman or a female that they're attracted to, that be like my levee, which is fee is literally the girl in French. So it's
Mm.
interesting. As I got older, I'm like, okay, like we were speaking French way before and we didn't even know.
Mm.
So just get that culture part, you know what I'm saying? You never feel like you missing out on something. And
Mhm.
even as I began to travel, like internationally, as I got older, I felt like like I always knew all of these people because it's so many different cultures and influences on New Orleans.
Mhm. So how old were you when Katrina hit?
So Katrina was like 04, 05. So I was probably like 12, 13. Yeah, I think I was 13 when Katrina hit because I had just started at St. Og. Because I had went to St. Og the year before. That was the first year they had the eighth grade. They had just started the eighth grade. So I went there
Mhm.
for that. And then we left to go to Florida. And I was going to go back to ninth grade. And that's when Katrina happened. And that was like, for me, that was like the first time that we had a hurricane that we actually had to leave for. And it
Mhm.
was And I was like, and it was really crazy for me because like we had been through category 3 storms and like just
Mm.
literally sitting in the house, like we'll watch the rain, go outside and play during the eye of the storm and then come back inside for a half.
Uh.
So like it was pretty crazy. And then just to see all of the traffic, like there's a place like it's like literally 45 minutes from New Orleans because New Orleans is very small. Like you can get from
Mhm.
one side to the other side in 15 minutes.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So like a trip that would have normally taken us like 45 minutes probably took us like 13 or 14 hours because of all the traffic that was back there because everybody was trying to leave. So
Wow.
it was an experience for sure. But fortunately, like we ended up leaving, so we didn't get caught in all of the detrimental aftermath like a lot of other New Orleanians.
Mm.
But we definitely still had that kind of vibe, like the refugees in our own country when we went to other states, you know what I'm saying? Because
Mhm.
everybody like, oh, they see what's happening to us, but they're like, oh, we don't want, them to come and kind of take what we got, the crap in the
Right.
bucket mindset that a lot of people have, you know what I mean? So,
Mhm. Um,
so that was definitely an interesting time for sure.
you bring up the fact that y'all had would go out there and play in hurricanes, in the eye of the hurricane and run back in with the storm. And a lot of your work has to do with certain areas that would get flooded. And this is going before Katrina. We're going to get into that later. But when was it? What age was it that you first came aware? Oh, this area is always flooding, and these areas don't ever flood.
Well, it's funny because being in New Orleans is kind of, it's one of those things, it's so regular for you where you don't even really think about it like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm from the 7th Ward, so that's really like where the flooding takes place is in like the 7th Ward, like the upper and lower ninth ward for real. So like, with me being from the 7th Ward, like it's just like regular. Like you just kind of pray and you're just like, okay, like as long as it don't come up in my house, like we good. You know what I'm saying? Because it'll be like the flood subside in a couple hours. But it really wasn't until I got older and I really started doing, my own business, started really looking at and started working in different areas of the city where you see, oh wow, there's areas like the uptown area or like the Garden District area, you know what I'm saying? They have all of these big oak trees, you know what I'm saying? All of this lush green landscapes and all of this. And you like, I mean, they flood because it's New Orleans, but like the consistency and the frequency of them flooding is not as much, or it takes a lot more rain to cause the same amount of flooding, the same volume of flooding that, they had in like the neighborhood that I came up in.
So I want to get into the fact that your work, but I want to get into how you started your work. You battled cancer and you won. You battled cancer and you won. You came out on the other side and you chose to build something instead of strictly just speaking out. Can you tell me about when you got to that point that you wanted to start a company to help with this specific problem, and how that battle of cancer kind of pushed you in that direction?
Absolutely. So I had cancer literally right as I graduated high school. So right as I turned 17 was when I found out I had cancer. And then my mindset, like I've always been super optimistic. There's no downside type of person. You know what I'm saying? Unless like it's right in my face. So even when they told me, they're like, oh, you got cancer. And I'm like, okay, what's the next steps? Like, how can we, get it popping? So after I finished, like I ended up going into chemical engineering at LSU, and I took and of course in the course, so you have to take biochemistry and other like natural science classes. So in biochemistry, we all know that plants need light to make, oxygen, but the breakdown of it like was really so like then that I like started my own like small garden like in my backyard. So I'm the type of person, I'm a perfectionist for real. So once I really dig into something, I'm like, yo, I want to be the best at this. So I got my horticultural, my master gardener license from LSU during that time. And then I'm like, okay, I can get the knowledge portion, but this is a hands-on type of field. So then I was a laborer for a couple local landscaping companies. And then I noticed I'm just like, yo, I can do this. I can start this and do this myself. So when I moved to New Orleans, I started, like the first thing that I started noticing was like, we have all of this culture and all of these, these different color houses. Cause in New Orleans, it's all of the houses is like purple, blue, yellow, you know what I'm saying? So, but all of the lawns look the same. Like it's all just green, like it's just grass, you know what I'm saying? Or like just not enough flavor. And I'm just like, how can we make the outdoor space like an extent of the indoor space? So initially it was just like purely aesthetic, but as I started working for different landscaping companies in New Orleans, I realized that while they do provide like a great aesthetic, they're not solving the deeper issue. That's just pretty much the surface level issue. So with me having cancer and coming through it, I realized that, and then being a chemical engineer, knowing that, studying chemical engineering, knowing like the baseline, like the stuff that we see is just the effects of a deeper cause. You know what I'm saying? So like people get like, they say, oh, landscaping, okay, like it solves a problem of the aesthetics, but what deeper causes is, what deeper purposes is servicing? So then that's when I kind of started looking into the stormwater management and how, that's when I started learning about actual green infrastructure and how you can use living, breathing, and, soils to actually absorb water to help to change different like characteristics of that specific property. So like what I found out, I think 4 years ago, I did the water challenge, which is pretty much like a pitch competition on how we will, how we work with water in New Orleans, because that's a thing. And what I learned doing my research is that the areas that I plan on affecting the most, which is like the Southern Wall, the Lower Ninth Wall areas, like all of the like historic Black areas, islands,
Hmm.
they have all of these different all of these different like things that happen to them. So the heat island effect, the food deserts, like the flooding, like all of those things can be solved with landscaping.
Hmm.
But what I realized was that it's not just landscape. It's like a deeper infrastructure that needs to be taken care of. So what we do is like what we do now and how we transition into it's our main goal when we do any green infrastructure installation or even design, or even when we're talking to people about their property, is just like to get them to understand that the most important thing is to figure out how many gallons of stormwater that their property can absorb per hour,
Hmm.
because that's the most important metric. And with New Orleans, we get probably almost the most rain in the country. I think maybe Seattle might be like close to us,
Okay.
but with us being like with our city being below sea level already,
Hmm.
it causes us to flood way more because our water saturation level it's like almost zero. So literally, if we get an inch if we get an inch of rain in an hour, like that is the like in most places that's like the most that the water table can handle before it starts to flood and the water can't go nowhere.
Right.
So
Okay.
what we do is we pretty much go in and we diagnose the property as it is currently and say, okay, this is how much stormwater that your property can manage on the property without pushing it off onto the streets, because that's really what the solution is currently and has, is to just basically put the problem off to make it the city problem.
Okay.
And yeah, like realistically, like this, put the water into the street and let the city drainage handle it. But the thing is, with New Orleans being the oldest city in the country, our pipes are exactly like they're ancient. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? So like they just can't handle the volume that is currently getting. And especially because top of that, it's a lot of like politics with it. So like a lot of the pumps are intermittent, you know what I'm saying, in certain areas, which, I can't control none of that. So I'm only focused on what I can control, which
Right.
is, implementing this stormwater management, trying to spread the word to make people understand how important, especially because, yeah, okay, that's us from flooding, during the rain, but also, and which is what I was saying earlier, like the property protection is they have what's called like a super wet cycle and then a super dry cycle. And then with the clay soil that we have in New Orleans, those two cycles is literally what makes the city sink, because the clay gets
Mm.
really, really wet and it
Hmm.
expands, and then they go through those super, super hot dry periods, and then it just cracks and crumbles, which is what causes all of the sinking, the major potholes in the city, like
Mm.
all the
Mm.
cracking. And a lot of people don't understand it. But if you like the way, which is why the way that we implement our like methodology, it keeps all of the water on the property so that you don't have those extremes of desiccation and saturation. It's kind of like a baseline. So that way the water, it doesn't stay saturated, but it's not wet enough to where when it does dry, it like creates spaces, that your
Mm.
house into. So
Okay, so King, it seems as you're describing what it is that you do now and the fact that you battled and beat cancer, especially you getting interested in the photosynthesis and the life of a plant and how sunlight is doing, and then doing the landscaping. And it seems, and I could be wrong, but it seems like when you had your experience with cancer, that life became a really important thing for you to understand, maybe? Was this something that you always had, or do you think that your battle with cancer put it into a new perspective of life?
So I've always been like a science and math kid like my entire life. But
Mm.
and I don't think that I really put that much thought into it until you just asked me the question. But I do very distinctively remember like when I was going to try to find my major, it had to be something with like biology and s- chemical nature, like something
Hmm.
like that. So I bounced around a couple different things. So I was in biochemical. And I was in my major was biochemical at first, and then I changed to food science, and then I changed to chemical engineering, which I think I landed on chemical engineering because it is exactly that. It's like learning how the base blocks of something are, and then building up from there. So I
Hmm.
do think that while it may have not been apparent at the time, I definitely think that me overcoming cancer and just my sciencey background before then has led me into the major that I ended up pursuing
Hmm.
because it's exactly what you're saying is looking at stuff from the deep inside and then building it up from there instead of working it from the outside in.
Yeah. A lot of people, when they think about New Orleans and they think about flooding and some of the work that you're specifically doing, their nexus point is Hurricane Katrina. But
Mhm.
you often talk about now this all started before Hurricane Katrina through the actual planning of the city. You talked a
Mhm.
little bit about some of the complications that the city has just from being below sea level and the nature of it. But how was the actual planning, the foundation of the city? How did that lead to some of the devastation that we saw that eventually led to Hurricane Katrina and that devastation?
So I do know that like with New Orleans already being below sea level, and it's funny because I was just talking to my grandma about this like a couple weeks ago, and she was telling me because she's staying in back of town, which is what we call back of town, which is in a seven ward. But what she was saying is like those areas where she still lives right now used to be kind of like I don't want to say farmland areas, but they used to raise their own animals like pigs, ducks, rabbits, chickens, and all of that. And
Mhm.
then literally a house that's around the corner from my grandmother's current house, she was telling me, she was like, oh, that house used to be a watering hole for the animals.
Oh, okay.
And
All right.
I was like, wow. So that made me think about it from a different perspective because it's like this was already like not like purposefully, you know what I'm saying, set to like if something happened, it's gonna be underwater, but through, years of small, little insignificant or what people consider insignificant details happening, you know what I'm saying? Like it built up this but also, I think the major thing, and a lot of people like have this idealism, is that they blew the levees, or like the levees somehow failed only in that one part. And the idealism that I've seen a lot is that that was done so that way, one, they can begin the gentrification of the lower ninth ward and the seventh ward, which you can see. I mean, if you can see it now, like you can see that the gentrification is very, very apparent
Mhm.
and then also so they can save the French Quarter because that's the gem, that's the real moneymaker. And I think a lot of people have this idealism because this a very similar thing happened with Hurricane Bessie back in I think what 65.
Hmm.
So
Where they blew the levees
yeah,
or the way the storm hit, it hit very similar to how Hurricane Katrina hit.
yeah, precisely. And then they were saying that, and I haven't done deep research on this, but from what I have been like heard and listened to is they heard they I don't know if it was confirmed or not, but there's a lot of people that said they blew the levees back then. And then even
Mhm.
now with Katrina, there's people that live on that side that say that they heard explosions.
Mhm.
So, but I'm sure it would take some deep, confirmation and, money and deep pockets to get that to be, told up
Right,
front,
right.
but I think I'm not gonna say that it just seemed like that is a very logical thing, especially if they did it before. You know what I'm saying? And especially with the climate change and how stuff is going right now. If you go to those areas that used to be considered, the hood, quote
Mm.
unquote, you know what I'm saying? But it's literally just families living out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you go to historic Black neighborhoods, it's all, you see people walk, jogging at night, you know what I'm saying, by themselves now, and you
Yeah,
know,
that's
you know,
gentrification. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, the signs, you know what I'm saying, they have, which is, I mean, it's good. It's good that the city is bringing in this new revenue, but it's just you know, signs that you can see, and they had a, I want to say they have a neighborhood called Broadmoor, which is kind of like it's kind of like a mix, you know what I'm saying? Because New Orleans is very street by street. So you can go
Okay.
on one street and it's like the houses are like, you know, they're like renters in the houses of families that have been living there for years and years and years and years. And then literally the next street over is 2-story, 3-story houses, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, where it's like, you can tell that the price value of these houses is a lot more than these houses over here. And it's literally just one street over. So one block over. So just that type of differentiation, I can see it, you know what I'm saying? Everybody else is seeing it, but my thing is like I really started my company to, I mean, of course I started to, I wanted to have my own company and not work for nobody, you know what I'm saying? Make my own hours. But as I've grown and, you know, gotten older, it's really become more community based for sure, because I'm like, if I can give back to my city, especially by doing one thing, which is, I keep saying landscaping, but it's so much deeper than that. You know what I'm saying? But it's the colloquial, the layman term is landscaping, because that's what people know it as. You know what I'm saying? So if I can provide all of these other outcomes, you know what I'm saying, like minimizing the heat island effect, because everybody know that when you hot, you get more upset. Everybody knows that, but it's just so interesting that when you look at the numbers, it's like, okay, these neighborhoods that have all of these heat island effects, these food deserts, you know what I'm saying? They're more like they're more violent during the summertime than the wintertime. And it's like, why is that? It's because of the heat island effect. They just get, it's hotter over there. And I want to say it's not a nominal thing. I want to say if you have shade, I think it's 10 or 15 degrees difference. I'm saying in every stand, which is a big difference. So then it's just, you know, if I can stop the heat island effect, if I can, or minimize the heat island effect, if I can minimize the food deserts, if I can raise the community collaboration with each other, you know what I'm saying? So that way the neighborhoods can get back to how they were when I was like when I was younger, you know, that would be the pinnacle.
Yeah. Me and my sister often talk about food deserts. She lives in Atlanta and she's in a food desert, but it's not as bad as it used to be. It takes 10 or 15 minutes to get to the local grocery store. But there's a correlation in New Orleans with these food deserts and these flood zones. One, what can you tell me about this correlation of why it exists? And two, you talk about bringing down the heat by creating more shade. You had a specific term, but it was tough for me to catch it. How can you make it cooler just being outside when, of course, we got global warming and things are getting hotter? Every summer is the hottest summer that there's ever been. I'm tired of these hot summers. And you can find a way to make things cooler. I'm all for it. So explain to me the correlation between the food deserts and the flood zones, and then how can we cool down these areas that you're saying are really heated?
All right, so from what I found in New Orleans is, and I don't want to say I don't want to say it's a correlation in the sense that because these are food deserts, they flood, or because they flood their food deserts.
Okay.
I would say that the correlation from my aspect is that these places that flood, that also have food deserts, can be solved by one overall solution, which is what we call sponge nodes, because they absorb water. But what other people may call like community gardens, but like a taking blighted lots in those areas and turning them into community gardens. Because the thing is, I think a lot of the reasons why this stuff floods, and like I said, the other neighborhoods that are greener, just in general, don't flood, is because of the great infrastructure. It's so much pavement, it's so
Mm-hmm.
much concrete, because they're trying to maximize like parking spaces or like apartment complexes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that, one, that does a couple different things. One, because it is solid, it's just gonna radiate the heat back into the air, which is what causes the heat island effect. And then secondarily, if there's no if it's all great infrastructure, the water literally can't absorb into the ground.
Mm.
So it gets pushed onto the pumps, which can't handle the rainwater. Like I
Right.
just did a social media post on Instagram last week about an article stating that currently, right now, the pumps in the city can only manage in the first hour of a storm, the pumps can only handle 1 inch of rain.
Mm.
And every hour after that, it can only handle a half an inch of rain, which is like literally nothing.
Right. Yeah.
And that's right now.
Mm.
So just imagine how it was like, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's why like it's so much more pertinent now, because like I said, I feel like it's politics everywhere, but I feel like because New Orleans is so small, the politics hit the communities way harder.
Mm.
So that's why like I'm like trying to work with as many people as possible and trying to be an advocate so that people can start taking these solutions into their own hands, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about your company, because we've hinted towards what you do, but we haven't gone into specifics. Can you break down what it is that your company does? And then I want to know about when you go into these communities to work, what's the reception like?
So my company stops New Orleans from sinking.
Okay.
That's the baseline. And the way that we do that is through soil science and landscape engineering. Green landscape engineering and green infrastructure practices more aptly.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, especially because I come from a place of love and support and of service, I've not had any negative interactions with anybody. You know what I'm saying? If anything, people are looking to learn more about it,
Mm-hmm.
especially right now in the climate that we have, where it's like we don't know what's in the food. We don't know even if we do know what's in the food, it's crazy expensive. So people are looking to do, more things, more DIY things. So they looking for the information.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm like, okay, I've been doing this for 6 years now, officially, with my business. So now that, it's starting to get more traction with socially, like with being organic or doing stuff yourself or having your own garden, or like how you can grow so much food in such a small space. Now that it's becoming more prominent, I think is great, because I can get to speak and teach people about this. Because my thing is, of course, it'll be great if I get more business, but if you getting knowledge from this and then you start a garden, if I could turn a black thumb into a green thumb, like that's really my goal.
Yeah, because I can tell you from personal experience, I don't have a green thumb. I done killed many of plants, so I don't know if I'd be able to grow my own food, but that's good to know that there's a company out there that can at least teach you how to do these things. When you grow food, because New Orleans is known for its food, and you have these food deserts, what type of crops are you growing that is culturally significant to the people that live in New Orleans?
So I would say like a lot of the stuff that is okra. And
Mm.
it's people in New Orleans, they either love it or they hate it. But I think that's definitely like a New Orleans thing. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like okra gumbo, like fried okra. You know what I'm saying? The other stuff I don't think it's more like the ingredients, you know what I'm saying? Unless like you're looking at like a andouille sausage or something like that. But that's more
Mm.
like the seasonings around it. You know what I'm saying? And how you put them together. Like I
Mhm.
was talking to my mama the other day, and we was talking to my brother about how to make gumbo. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like I made it for the first time like maybe a year ago or something like that. And I was on, I'm like, yo, what do I need to do? Da 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 da. Da. So
Mhm.
like she had me make it, and I'm a big cook anyway. So I love, like, I'm a big foodie. I mean,
Mhm.
I feel like you can't be from New Orleans and can't be a foodie.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so like as I'm going through it, she like, okay, like I'm tasting it through and through, and I'm like, okay, it tastes good, it tastes good, it tastes good, da 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 da. So like at the end, we add what's called a gumbo filé,
Okay.
and like that changes the entire, like it really changes the whole dish. Like it turns it from like chicken and sausage soup into gumbo.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of like, that's that little like extra thing that's what New Orleans is. Like New Orleans is like the filet for everything else. You know what I'm saying? So because you can come here and you can go somewhere and get catfish, you know what I'm saying? And you can come here and get catfish, but it's just, it's that little extra, it's like, oh, like, I don't know what they did. It's like maybe they did something with the cornmeal or something, or like maybe the catfish is just fresher, or you know what I'm saying? So it's not necessarily the ingredients themselves, but it's like how we treat the ingredients and mend them all together.
Mm. And so does that start with the garden?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta have good, if you want to have a good product, you gotta have a good ingredients to begin with, for sure.
Right. Yeah. Is there one person or one project that really proves that you're really the most proud of, and that you can look back as a fellow business owner, there are times when you're like, man, what am I doing here? Is this working? Was there a moment, a person, a project where you were like, you know what? This is the reason why I'm doing all of this.
So I've had a couple different projects like that, but and that they've been more like, when I first started, it was kind of like the aesthetics. Is like, oh wow, look what I turned your yard into,
Mm.
and so that you can enjoy it and not come out here and like it be an eyesore. So I've had a couple of those, but I would say like my greatest one was my recent one. So I just finished the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program.
Mm.
And through that program, it literally made me pivot my entire business model. So
Okay.
the actual first design that we did with this new business model really showed me like, okay, this is why I'm doing this, because we pretty much turned their property from absorbing 1.5 inches of stormwater an hour to absorbing 8 inches of stormwater an hour.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
And
What was
that's
it
like,
about? What was it about the change in your business model that made that drastic change in their property?
I was just more aesthetics focused before
Mm.
I pivoted. And then
Mhm.
once I pivoted, I really leaned on my scientific background, like my deep knowledge aspect, and looking at it
Mm.
not just like we was talking about earlier, not from the top down, but from the inside, from the base layers, and looking at it up, which is why now we check the soil composition like 3 feet deep, 3 feet deep. We check the microbiology that's in your soil, and we check
Mm.
the nutrient content that's in your soil, because all three of those things work in tandem to help build the absorption rate for the stormwater. And then
Mm.
that's just as a base. And then what we also, so me being very sciencey and loving all of that stuff. So we pick plants. I mean, first we pick plants specific and native to our climate.
Mhm.
Secondarily, we look at the transpiration rates of each plant.
Hmm.
So that way we can know, okay, we can know the rate, we can calculate a rate that plant is going to absorb water and release it back into the air. That is
Mm.
also how you cool down heat islands.
Hmm.
Because if you put more, the first thing that cools them down is less concrete, less surface to radiate heat.
Hmm.
That's the first thing. The second thing is the plants, they provide transpiration, which means they putting water into the air, which
Mhm.
in New Orleans, it could make it, I mean, it's already humid, you know what I'm saying? So it could make it a little more humid, but that still takes away from, like the heat island effect.
Mhm.
And then, like a lot of the stuff that they do have in New Orleans, a lot of the shade trees, like the oaks and like all of the stuff, you plant those in, like depending on how you plant them, like you can create different shade spots, which also helps with the heat island effect.
Mhm. How do you how do you balance working with clients that because you've stepped back from the aesthetics and put more emphasis on the science? How do you make that register with the client? Because they say, look, I want these plants, I want these type of crops, and you're like, well, that won't work here because our environment is not conducive for
Mm.
that to that plant or that crop to grow and to prosper. And they're like, well, these are the colors that I kind of want this landscape to look like. And you're like, yeah, that's great. But also we need to do these other things so you're not living on a heat island and also not having too much water runoff. So like, how do you balance that, your new business philosophy, your new business strategy with kind of clients saying, I don't care about that. I just want it to look pretty.
Patience and understanding.
Mm, mm.
I I'm learning. I just got married 2 years ago, so my communication levels have gone up astronomically.
That'll do it. That'll do it.
So that is taught me patience and understanding, because the thing is, people hire you because they don't know how to do it.
Right.
Like, when you go to the doctor, you don't tell a doctor, you tell a doctor, okay, this is what I feel like is wrong with me.
Mhm.
You don't tell it, like, the doctor gives you a prescription, you don't tell the doctor like, yo, that's not gonna work for me, unless you've tried it before and it hasn't specifically worked. But you know what I'm saying? If you haven't, then you're gonna just take it and go about your day. So I try to approach my clients like that. It's okay, I understand you have this vision, and we're gonna try to get you as close to that vision as we can. But we
Mhm.
also need to be realistic. And if you don't want to be realistic, that's perfectly fine. It's just gonna cost you more money, because now we have to be out here to meticulously maintain it, because you have chosen and wanted all of these non-native plants, all of these plants that hate wet feet and we live in a humid area, or you want these sun tolerant plants under your house in the shade. And it's like, yeah, we can do what we can for you, but I just am very upfront. You know what I'm saying? I
Mhm.
feel like being from New Orleans, like everybody's like that. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'm telling you how it is. Like you know
Right.
what
Right.
I'm saying? It's like you can go with me or you cannot go with me. Like you can go with the next person if you want and they can do it. And
Mhm.
then, in 6 months you're gonna be calling me anyway.
Right.
But like I,
Yeah.
I try to present it to where like I give the client as much information as I can, so that way they can make a sound decision. And that way, even if you don't go with me, at least I did everything that I can do to help you.
True. True. When people look back on this work that you're doing years from now, what do you want them to feel about what was built and who helped build it?
I would like to see that. I would like it to be an influence, to be like, if you want, be like it sounds cliche, but it's be the change you want to see, like
Mm,
for real. you know, it's like, especially right now, there's all of this like hype around like an exodus from New Orleans because of all of the flood and all of the water and all of that.
mhm,
And it's just like a shock factor. And I think that's also like them trying to politic and trying to get the natives out and get more like gentrification in. That's what I
mm,
think. You know what I'm saying? Like a scare tactic, pretty much. Because the way I look at it, I'm like, yo, they have all of these coastal countries that literally live on water, like Venice. Literally, they just use boats to get around. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
Like I saw an article that I think it was in the Maldives or like in the Middle East. Basically, they actually manufactured an island like
mm,
that. That like a city like on the water. So it's like
right,
all of this hype about like we can't do it and we gotta leave. Like I like it's so bogus. You know what I'm saying? I
mhm,
think it's just gonna take a mindset shift, and for the community to actually you know what I'm saying, start being the changes they want to see. And like, even if you don't know where to start, like at least just be curious and ask questions. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, King, you have an interesting employee model that I would love for you to share to the audience because I think it's a really cool concept. So, can you explain to me and the audience what your employee model is like?
Absolutely, I would love to. So we have what's called a Pathway First program. And what that is which means that some of our employees we specifically gather from unhoused neighbors or from reentry individuals.
Mhm.
And the plan with this is once we have really gotten this off the ground is those individuals that we hire through the Pathway First program will be getting an above wage rate so that way they don't feel like they are, struggling or needing for anything. On
Mhm.
top of that, for our reentry individuals, we will, provide them with legal counseling so they don't have to worry about that,
Mm.
as well as like mental health assistance
Mhm.
and financial assistance. And financial assistance from the standpoint of we're gonna help you, get your stuff set up so that you can live your life every day, but also so that you can plan for the future and teach you how to invest your money. And
Mm.
then also with the investing, we will match 1-to-1 for their investing. So that way, they can have a nest egg because the whole thing is I want to assist people with not having a scarcity mindset because there's too much
Mhm.
money out here for that, like literally.
Well, it was. I think a lot of the billionaires are snatching it up. But yes, the concept is there is money out here to be getting it. And I love the fact that you are helping people get a get a leg up, but also propping them up so that when they go off on their own, they can be successful on their own. You're setting them up for success. So I love that concept.
Exactly, and that's literally what we plan to do. We want to set them up so that they can stay employed with us and become a higher up and become a leader and have their
Hmm.
own crews and their own teams. Or if they want to go in, if they have other passions, we will assist them with getting the certifications or the education, the knowledge base so that they can go and pursue their passions. We just want to be as of service in as many ways to those individuals as we can because that's the ones that get skipped over. And a
Yeah.
lot of the times it's like those are people that's from our neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? You don't know what circumstance has led them to that because everybody I heard this saying and it made so much sense. Every person is one decision away from being like that.
Yes. Yeah. Everybody is one
One decision.
single decision. Yep.
And it
You.
could be a minute decision. It could be like literally split. And this is most times it's a split second decision.
Hmm.
So like when you realize like how close you are to that, like regardless of who you are, like it makes you look at everything differently.
Yeah. All right, man. I love that. Ladies and gentlemen, Preston King Robinson, the
I
founder
appreciate
of
it.
Garden Picasso. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Man, look, this was a class, a tutorial, because you threw some stuff out there and I was like, man, I don't know nothing about that. I need to read a little bit more. I never would have thought of heat deserts. I live in Washington, D.C., which was 1 million degrees this past 4th of July weekend. Now, we got concrete everywhere. And I'm like, this is kind of the part of the reason why it's so hot. There's not a lot of green space. So that's interesting that you brought that up. That's something I didn't know about. So thank you so much for coming on the show and enlightening us to all of this. I really appreciate it.
Of course, man. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. This was an experience for sure.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Before we end, I want to leave you with one last thought. When most people hear the word landscaping, they think about curb appeal. They think about making a yard look nice or increasing property value. But after talking to King today, I don't think I'll ever hear that word the same way again. Because what he's doing through Garden Picasso isn't just landscaping. He's helping neighborhoods hold water instead of flooding. He's creating green spaces in communities that have gone generations without them. He's helping address food deserts. He's creating jobs and teaching skills. He's hiring people from the very communities he's trying to improve, which means every project isn't just changing the land, is creating opportunity for people who already live there. That's a completely different way of thinking. He's not waiting for someone to save his community. He's becoming part of the solution. And I hope that's something that we all can support. We spend a lot of time talking about what government should do, and government does have a responsibility. We talk about what corporations should do, and corporations should also have a responsibility. We talk about what our neighbors should do, and yes, communities have to show up for one another. But somewhere in all those conversations, we have to ask ourselves another question. What responsibility belongs to me? Because if we're always waiting on someone else to make the first move, we shouldn't be surprised when nothing moves at all. Not everybody can redesign a city's stormwater system. Not everybody can start a company. But everybody can ask themselves one simple question. What problem am I uniquely equipped to solve? Because that's really what purpose is. It's finding where your gifts meet someone else's needs. That's what I saw in King today. A young man who took his education, his life experience, surviving cancer, and his love for his hometown and turned it into something bigger than himself. And I hope Garden Picasso succeeds, not just because it's a good business, but because communities all over this country need more people who believe the places we've written off are still worth investing in. Because here's what I've learned. Communities don't change because somebody shows up with all the answers. Communities change when somebody decides they're worth fighting for before everyone else sees their value. But here's the uncomfortable part people don't want to talk about. We love celebrating people after they transformed a neighborhood. We put them on stages, we give them awards, and they tell their story. But when they're just getting started, when they're asking for support, when they're trying to build something that actually helps people, we usually look the other way. Maybe the reason so many communities stay the same isn't because we don't have enough people willing to work. Maybe it's because we don't recognize them until the work is already done. The next person who could transform your community may already be there. But if we only invest in people after they succeed, we shouldn't be surprised when so many dreams never get the chance to become reality. Because by the time we finally recognize their value, we've already missed our opportunity to help build the future we all said we wanted. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for watching. And until next time, as always, I'll holla. Woo! That was a hell of a show. Thank you for rocking with us here on Unsolicited Perspectives with Bruce Anthony. Now, before you go, don't forget to follow, subscribe, comment, and share our podcast wherever you're listening or watching it to it. Pass it along to your friends. If you enjoy it, that means the people that you rock will enjoy it also. So share the wealth, share the knowledge, share the noise. And for all those people that say, well, I don't have a YouTube. If you have a Gmail account, you have a YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can actually watch our video podcast and YouTube exclusive content. But the real party is on our Patreon page, After Hours Uncensored and Talking Straight-ish. After Hours Uncensored is another show with my sister. And once again, the key word there is uncensored. Those are exclusively on our Patreon page. Jump onto our website at unsolicitedperspective.com for all things us. That's where you can get all of our audio, video, our blogs, and even buy our merch. And if you really feel generous and want to help us out, you can donate on our donations page. Donations go strictly to improving our software and hardware so we can keep giving you guys good content that you can clearly listen to and that you can clearly see. So any donation would be appreciative. Most importantly, I want to say thank you for listening and watching and supporting us. And I'll catch you next time. Audi 5000. Peace.